Babe, I need more. Clara's voice was a ragged whisper against my ear. Her face flushed, dark hair plastered to the sweat-slicked skin of her cheeks. Her arms were wrapped around me like ivy, draining the last of my strength. My head was swimming. My body felt hollowed out, my soul a wisp of smoke threatening to float away through the ceiling. It was always like this. 3 years of marriage, and she was a black hole I could never fill. By day, she was Dr. Clara Shaw, an art history professor at the University of Washington, all poise and untouchable grace, admired by students and faculty alike. By night, she became a ravenous succubus, her hunger for me insatiable. And I love her for it. I loved her cool elegance in the daylight and her fiery passion in the dark. But lately I was falling short. My body just couldn't keep up. I'm the art director for a booming Seattle game studio, 32 years old, supposedly in my prime. But recently, I've been making rookie mistakes at work. Yesterday, I'd permanently deleted an entire project folder, the master files for our next big release. Irretrievable. The sound of my boss's tirade was still ringing in my ears. Ethan, what the hell is wrong with you lately? It's like you're not even here. I didn't know. I just felt tired. A deep, penetrating exhaustion that had settled into my bones. Clara finally drifted into a deep sleep, her face serene and lovely, a perfect portrait. The strange thing was, after a night just as strenuous for her as it was for me, her complexion was rosier than ever, her skin so flawless it looked like you could press a finger to it, and a drop of water would appear. Me? I dragged my leaden legs into the bathroom. The man in the mirror was a stranger. Sunken eyes, dark circles like bruises, a face as pale as a sheet of paper. Was this really me? The guy who used to spend weekends hiking Mount Rainier and playing pickup basketball until dusk. I twisted the faucet and splashed icy water on my face. It offered a moment of sharp clarity. My gaze fell on a new addition to the shelf above the sink. A brand new, opulently packaged gift box. It was a jar of La Mer's most exclusive moisturizing cream. I remember Clara mentioning it last week, sighing about how it was far too expensive, a foolish indulgence. Lately, it seemed like all her wishes were coming true. Last month, she was up for a major state-level teaching award. She thought she had no chance, but then her biggest rival took a freak fall the day before the submission deadline and broke her wrist. Clara walked away with an honor countless others had coveted for years. The month before that, she bought a scratch-off ticket on a whim and won $50,000, just enough to make a hefty extra payment on her mortgage. And me? Every project I touched was plagued by bizarre, catastrophic accidents. A key investor would pull out at the last minute. The company's servers would inexplicably crash. A set of concept paintings I'd poured my soul into was mistaken for trash by the night janitor and hauled away. My luck had cratered. Clara's incredible good fortune. My abysmal bad luck. Could there be a connection? The absurd thoughts surfaced from the depths of my mind. I shook my head, trying to banish the monstrous idea. I was just exhausted, my mind playing tricks on me. Clara loved me. She would never. I walked out of the bathroom. Clara stirred in her sleep, murmuring something soft. Ethan, my sweet Ethan. A contented smile played on her lips. I moved to pull the blanket over her shoulders. Just then, a sliver of moonlight cut through the window and caught her wrist. The tattoo we'd gotten on our honeymoon, an elegant, intertwined E and C, seemed to pulse with a faint, almost imperceptible red light. It vanished in a blink. I thought I'd imagined it. I reached out, my fingers tracing the ink. What I felt wasn't the warmth of her skin. It was a cold, draining emptiness, as if something was being pulled from my very fingertips. I snatched my hand back. My heart began to pound, a frantic, wild drum against my ribs. Ethan, you're fired. The next morning, my boss called me into his office the moment I walked through the door. His expression was calm, a placid mask that was far more terrifying than any shouting. Why? My voice came out as a dry rasp. Why? He let out a cold laugh and slapped a file down on the desk in front of me. Take a look at your own work. This is what you've become. I looked. It was the final design submission for our biggest client. They called me at midnight, screaming. My boss continued, his voice low and dangerous. The design you sent over was a complete disaster. You got their corporate logo wrong, Ethan. Wrong. We've been courting this client for 6 months. Do you have any idea how much this is going to cost the company in damages? I stared at the design printout, my mind a complete blank. The style was mine. I recognized my own digital brushstrokes. But the content, it was so fundamentally wrong, so alien, I was shocked I could have produced it. How could I make a mistake like that? It was impossible. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Any explanation would sound like a pathetic excuse. Pack your things. HR will cut you a check. Get out. He waved a dismissive hand and turned his back to me. I walked out of the building in a daze, clutching a cardboard box filled with the remnants of my career. The Seattle sun was bright, but I felt no warmth. My phone buzzed. It was Clara. "Honey, I have a most amazing news." Her voice was electric with excitement. "I went to meet with that gallery owner about a partnership. I was sure it was a long shot, but get this. It turns out he's some long-lost great-uncle I never knew I had. He's offering me a solo exhibition on the spot." She paused, her joy bubbling over. "Ethan, can you believe how lucky I am?" Lucky. I gripped my phone, my knuckles turning white. Was my misfortune the price of her luck? The thought, once planted, grew like a weed, choking everything else. "Ethan, are you there? I'm happy for you," I heard myself say, in a voice that didn't sound like mine. I hung up and squatted on the sidewalk. A man with a box, a cliché of failure. A black BMW glided to a stop in front of me. The window rolled down to reveal a face that was both expensively maintained and etched with disdain. It was my mother-in-law, Lorraine Shaw. Well, if it isn't our superstar art director," she sneered. "What's with the box? Did you finally get kicked to the curb?" Her words were scalpels, expertly dissecting my open wounds. "My poor Clara," she went on, shaking her head with theatrical pity. "I have no idea what she ever saw in a loser like you." She opened her designer purse, pulled out a thick wad of cash, and threw it at my feet. "Here, don't say the Shaws never gave you anything. Now stay the hell away from my daughter. You're not good enough for her." The $100 bills scattered around me, a mocking green confetti. I didn't stoop to pick them up. I just lifted my head and stared at her. "You knew, didn't you?" Lorraine's eyes flickered for a fraction of a second before regaining their arrogant sheen. "Knew what? That you're a failure? I didn't need a crystal ball for that, honey. The whole world can see it." With a final, contemptuous sniff, she rolled up the window, and the BMW sped away, disappearing around the corner. The last bit of warmth in the world seemed to vanish with it. I went home. The condo was empty. Clara was probably busy celebrating her new exhibition. I walked into our bedroom, the place I once thought of as a sanctuary. Now it felt more like a beautifully decorated abattoir. I pulled open Clara's nightstand drawer. Among the cosmetics and silk eye masks was a small, locked, ornate wooden box. I'd seen it before. It was part of her dowry, a family heirloom she treasured, one she never let me touch. Today, I didn't care. I found a hammer in the hall closet. I brought it down on the tiny brass lock with all my strength. The lock shattered. As I opened the lid, a strange scent hit me, a mixture of sandalwood and something ancient, like decay. There were no jewels inside. There was only a single, yellowed, hand-bound book. The text was written in elegant, archaic calligraphy. The edges of the pages were brittle with age. I opened it to the first page. For stark, chilling words met my eyes. The marital endowment. My fingertips trembled on the page. The text was written in an obscure, old-world script, but somehow I could understand it perfectly. It was as if the knowledge was being downloaded directly into my brain. The book detailed a bizarre and terrifying secret art. The women of the Shaw family, it explained, were born with a unique hereditary ability. Through the most intimate act with their husbands, they could siphon away their endowment, their luck, talent, health, opportunities, even their lifespan. The more the husband loved his wife, the more complete and undetectable the siphoning became. The husband, drained of his essence, would gradually become mediocre, unlucky, and sick, eventually withering away like a sugarcane stalk squeezed dry of its juice. The book even listed the family's historical success stories. One ancestor had married a brilliant poet laureate. 3 years later, the poet was disgraced in a plagiarism scandal and died a penniless recluse. The Shaw woman, however, used his siphoned literary endowment to become the most celebrated female poet of her era. Another ancestor married a Gilded Age tycoon. Within 5 years, the man's business empire collapsed, his fortune vanished, and he died on the streets. The Shaw woman, meanwhile, became a formidable mogul in her own right, controlling half the city's shipping interests. Case after chilling case. Their glorious lives were built on the bones of their husbands. Their honor was forged from their husbands' blood and tears. I kept reading. The final section of the book detailed how to identify a high-quality vessel. Only one whose birth chart shows great promise, whose natural talents are abundant, is worthy of becoming a consort to the House of Shaw. My own birth date and time were written on the last page, a neat annotation in the margin. Next to it was another line in a smaller, sharper script. This subject's endowment is vast, his creativity prodigious. A prime vessel, the likes of which has not been seen in a century. Should Clara secure him, The Shaw family's prosperity is assured for 3 generations. It was signed, Lorraine Shaw. So that was it. From the very beginning, I had been the chosen prey. Our meet cute at a gallery opening, our whirlwind romance, our blissful marriage. It was all a meticulously crafted trap. I was the fool who had willingly walked into the snare they had set. I had given them my heart, and they had treated me like livestock to be fattened for the slaughter. A wave of nausea, a toxic cocktail of fury and disgust, churned in my stomach. I ran to the bathroom and retched, vomiting until my throat was raw. It felt like I wasn't just throwing up bile, but the last 3 years of my earnest, stupid love. My perfect marriage was nothing but a grotesque joke. I had to save myself. I couldn't just sit here and wait to become another sad footnote in their family history. Forcing myself to be calm, I went back to the book. If there was a method for siphoning, there had to be a way to stop it. I searched page by page. Finally, tucked between 2 pages that had been glued together, I found a single, much thinner sheet of paper. The handwriting was completely different, a graceful, feminine cursive. The endowment is no gift, but a curse. She who siphons will ultimately be consumed by that which she takes. Should her heart fill with remorse, she may, on the night of a full moon, use the union not as a conduit to perform the rite of reversal and return what was stolen. Be warned, the rite is perilous. A single misstep, and both souls will be extinguished. May future generations exercise caution and restraint. Below the text was a small signature, Eleanor Shaw. The name sounded vaguely familiar. I think Clara had mentioned a great-aunt named Eleanor, one who had supposedly joined a convent at a young age. So, there had been someone in this family with a conscience. The rite of reversal. It was my only chance. I carefully folded the note and put it in my pocket. Then, I took the marital endowment out to the back patio, stuffed it in our barbecue grill, and lit a match. As I watched the flames consume the evil text, my expression hardened into a mask of cold resolve. That evening, Clara came home, radiant, her arms full of shopping bags. "Ethan, look what I got for you. A new jacket from your favorite brand." She moved toward me, her arms open for a hug, just like always. I took a step back. "Ethan, what's wrong?" The smile froze on Clara's face. She was sharp. She sensed my coldness immediately. "Is it about work? Don't worry about it. It's okay if you take some time off. With my new gallery deal, I can support us both easily." Her words were meant to be kind, but all I heard was condescending pity. "Of course you can support me. You're using my stolen career as your personal checking account." "I'm tired," I said, my voice flat. I walked around her and headed for the bedroom. "I'm sleeping in the study tonight." Clara stood frozen in the living room. It was the first time in 3 years I had ever rejected her. The light in her eyes flickered and died, replaced by a look of hurt and confusion. Yesterday, that look would have shattered me. I would have rushed to hold her, to apologize, to soothe her. Tonight, it just looked like part of the act. Late that night, I lay on the pull-out couch in my study, tossing and turning. I had a potential solution, but the rite of reversal required a union knot as a catalyst. The book said the knot had to be woven by both husband and wife, their hearts and minds in perfect sync. How could we ever be in sync now? My heart was a frozen rock of hatred. Just then, the door creaked open. Clara, wearing her favorite silk nightgown, slipped silently into the room. In the moonlight, her form was ethereal and seductive. "Ethan," her voice was a trembling whisper, a plea. "I can't sleep alone. I'm scared." She came to the side of the couch and slowly leaned over me, ready to envelop me with her body, to melt my resistance with her heat, just as she always did. I could smell her familiar perfume, the scent that once drove me wild. Now it made my stomach churn. Her lips were inches from mine. And then I remembered the warning left by the mysterious Eleanor Shaw. She who siphons will ultimately be consumed by that which she takes. A bold, desperate plan formed in my mind. I didn't push her away. Instead, I wrapped my arms around her waist. Clara's body relaxed instantly, a soft sigh escaping her lips. She thought I had given in. Greedily, desperately, she began to kiss me, to draw from me. The familiar sensation of being drained, of being emptied, washed over me. But this time, I didn't surrender to it. I fought to keep a sliver of consciousness, my eyes locked on the E and C tattoo on her wrist. I summoned every ounce of my rage, my bitterness, my resentment. I was no longer Ethan, the loving husband. I was a man whose life she had destroyed, and I was here for revenge. If my love was the conduit for her theft, could my absolute hatred be the poison that flowed back? "You're a thief, Clara, a parasite who steals lives. You and your greedy mother can both go to hell. I curse you. I curse the whole Shaw family. May you never know peace again." I screamed the words in the silence of my mind, a venomous torrent of curses. Suddenly, Clara's body went rigid. Her arms, wrapped around me, jerked back as if shocked by a cattle prod. A short, sharp cry of pain. She recoiled violently, tumbling off the couch and onto the floor. The tattoo on her wrist was now glowing with a sickly, malignant black light. The darkness spread like a disease, racing up her arm and across her entire body. No, no. Clara looked at her hands in horror as the color drained from her face. She was no longer a radiant beauty. Before my eyes, her skin began to wither, turning sallow and dry, liver spots blooming on its surface. Her lustrous black hair began to fall out in clumps. "What's happening? What's happening to me?" she stammered. She looked up, her eyes wide with a terror that was directed at me, at this monster she didn't recognize. But in the next second, her expression shifted. The fear was replaced by something deeper, more complex. It was pain. It was regret. It was the crushing weight of a shared despair. A flood of images, of feelings, washed over her. My boss screaming at me. Me, squatting on the sidewalk with my cardboard box like a stray dog. Me, standing silently as her mother humiliated me, too broken to fight back. Me, heaving my guts out in the bathroom, my heart shattered. She was feeling my failures, my pain, my despair. Everything she had stolen from me, every achievement she had proudly claimed as her own, now seared her soul like a branding iron. She finally understood. Her brilliant, lucky life was a lie, fueled by the slow burning of my own. She was the curse. What have I been doing to you? Clara crumpled to the floor, tears of regret and horror streaming down her instantly aged face. She was at long last awake. The rite of reversal hadn't happened, but my curse, it seemed, had triggered some kind of backlash. Clara's aging was temporary. The endowment she'd stolen from me was now a volatile storm raging inside her. As for me, I felt a faint flicker of strength returning. The bone-deep exhaustion had lessened, the feeling of utter emptiness slightly abated. Clara was curled on the floor, trembling like a wounded animal. She looked at me, her eyes brimming with a terrifying mixture of guilt and fear. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was like this." Her voice was hoarse, as if she'd aged 30 years overnight. Looking at her withered form, I felt no thrill of revenge, only a vast, empty sadness. Just then, the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent, again and again. "Open this door. Clara, Ethan, open up right now." It was Lorraine, my mother-in-law, her voice tight with anger and panic. I went to the door and opened it. She blew past me like a hurricane, not even giving me a glance as she stormed toward the study. When she saw the frail, aged woman on the floor, she stopped dead, then let out a piercing shriek. "Oh my God, Clara, what happened to you?" She rushed over and helped Clara up, her face a mask of horror. "It was him. That worthless piece of trash did this to you." Lorraine whipped her head around, her eyes shooting daggers at me. "You parasite, you ungrateful leech. My daughter gives you everything, a beautiful home, a wonderful life, and this is how you repay her." Clara weakly tugged on Lorraine's sleeve. "Mom, it's not his fault. It was me. It's my fault." "Your fault." Lorraine poked Clara's forehead, her voice dripping with scorn. "Didn't I tell you? This man is your golden goose. You were supposed to hold on to him, drain him dry. Why did you stop? Why? Look at you now. You're a mess." Her voice dropped to a venomous whisper. "Were you starting to feel sorry for him? Did you want him to get his power back? To have him standing over you?" Lorraine's words were poison-tipped knives, shredding the last of Clara's delusions. "Mom," Clara stared at her mother in disbelief. "You knew all of it. From the very beginning, you knew this wasn't a blessing. You knew it was. It was bleeding him dry. So what if it was?" Lorraine stood with her hands on her hips, utterly defiant. "The women of this family were born to be queens. Men are just stepping stones to get us the lives we deserve. You should be grateful you even looked at him. It's the greatest honor he'll ever have. She was proud of it. Your grandmother did it. Her mother before her did it. And I did it. What makes you so special? Look at me. If it wasn't for your deadbeat father and his scrap of talent, do you think I'd be living in my house, driving my car today?" There was no shame on her face, only the smug satisfaction of a predator. Clara's world collapsed. She had believed their love was fated, a gift from the universe. Now she saw it for what it was, a dirty, malevolent generational scheme. "He's my husband, Mom," Clara screamed, using the last of her strength. "Not our sacrifice." Smack! The sound of the slap echoed in the quiet room. Lorraine's face was twisted with rage. You ungrateful girl. Has he brainwashed you? I'm taking you out of here right now. I won't let you stay with him another minute. She grabbed Clara's arm and began to drag her toward the door. I lunged forward, blocking their path. Let her go. My voice was quiet but cold as ice. Lorraine looked me up and down, her lip curling in disgust. You? A fired, washed-up loser is going to stop me. I said. I repeated, staring directly in her eyes. Let go of my wife. Maybe it was the look in my eyes, but for the first time, Lorraine seemed hesitant. She instinctively loosened her grip. Clara scrambled behind me, clutching the back of my shirt. The small gesture sent a pang through my heart. Fine, fine. Lorraine was trembling with rage. Clara, you'll regret this. And you, Ethan, don't get too comfortable. This isn't over. She spat the threat and slammed the door behind her. The room was finally quiet, filled only with the sound of Clara's soft, broken sobs. Ethan, I was so wrong, she whispered from behind me. Is there any chance for us? I didn't answer. I just turned and looked at her aged face, at the eyes filled with a desperate, pleading regret. A chance? I didn't know. All I knew was that this fight had only just begun. In the days that followed, Clara's condition fluctuated wildly. Some moments, she'd look almost like her youthful self. Most of the time, she was a shadow, an old woman trapped in our condo. The life force she'd stolen from me was a tempest inside her, ravaging her body and mind. She stopped going to the gallery. She didn't see anyone. She just stayed in her room, a prisoner of her own guilt. She tried to make amends, attempting to cook, but nearly setting the kitchen on fire, trying to clean, but accidentally shattering my favorite coffee mug. The more she tried to fix things, the more she messed up, just like I used to. The air between us was thick with a tense, awkward silence. I knew she was trying to atone, but the word forgive was a stone I couldn't lift. One afternoon, the doorbell rang. I braced myself for another confrontation with Lorraine, but when I opened the door, it was my best friend, Leo. Ethan, man, I heard you got canned. What happened? Leo walked in, his face a mask of concern, a six-pack of craft beer under his arm. He'd been my college roommate and a colleague at the studio. We were supposed to be like brothers. It's nothing. Boss and I didn't see eye to eye, I said evasively. Leo clapped me on the shoulder. Don't sweat it, man. A guy with your talent? You'll land on your feet. Come on, let's have a beer. He popped 2 bottles open without waiting for an answer. Clara emerged from the bedroom. She looked better today, just pale and drawn. Hey, Clara, Leo said with a wide smile. You gotta cheer this guy up. He takes everything way too hard. I will, Clara said quietly. Oh, and congrats. Leo raised his bottle. I heard you're getting a solo exhibition. You're seriously the biggest success story from our whole graduating class. Clara's face went white. She said nothing. Leo didn't seem to notice. He took a long swallow of beer and said, as if it had just occurred to him, you know, the weirdest thing happened with that big project of yours, Ethan. The client was this close to signing, but then I heard the boss on the phone. Someone sent the client an anonymous email with those old joke caricatures you drew of the professors back in college. The client thought you were unprofessional. That's what really killed the deal. A cold dread washed over me. Those drawings. I'd done them as a joke right after graduation. Only one person had ever seen them. Leo. I snapped my head up and stared at him. He was still talking. I mean, who would be that much of a snake, right? Sabotaging someone's career like that. But hey, it's a good thing Clara's is taking off, or you guys would be in real trouble. As he spoke, he shot a quick, almost imperceptible glance at Clara, a look that was a toxic mix of admiration and something else, something possessive. In that instant, I understood everything. He sent the email. He was here now, pretending to be my shoulder to cry on, while simultaneously praising Clara's success and subtly driving a wedge between us. He was jealous of me. He'd always been jealous. Of my talent. Of my beautiful wife. He wanted to see me fail. He wanted me to have nothing. For all I knew, he and Lorraine were in on it together. My downfall was his entertainment. Leo, I interrupted, my voice dangerously calm. Those drawings. I only ever showed them to you. The color drained from Leo's face. He recovered quickly. Did you? Man, I don't remember. You know how you are. You show your stuff to everyone. He took a nervous sip of his beer. Clara had put it together, too. She looked at Leo, her eyes like chips of ice. Leo, Ethan always said you were his best friend. I am, Leo said a little too quickly. Ethan and I are brothers. Then why, Clara asked, her voice cutting through the air, did you deliberately send the client a design file with the wrong logo? The person who had interfaced with the client, who had handled the final file transfer, was Leo. The faulty design had never even been submitted. I caught the error myself and left the printout on my desk to be redone. The only person who could have gotten their hands on it and sent it out was him. Leo's face was now a pasty shade of white. His mouth hung open, as if a hand were clamped around his throat. "Get out," I said, pointing to the door. "Ethan, wait, let me explain." I said, "Get out." I grabbed the beer bottle he'd brought and smashed it on the floor. Glass and foam exploded across the hardwood. A perfect metaphor for our pathetic friendship. Leo scrambled backward, terrified, and practically fell out the door. The apartment was filled with a dead, ringing silence. Clara walked over, silently found a broom and dustpan, and began to sweep up the shards of glass. "I'm sorry," she said, not looking at me. "If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have been so vulnerable to people like him." She was right. As my endowment was drained, my judgment, my intuition, my ability to read people had all dulled, leaving me blind to the vipers right beside me. I watched her kneeling on the floor, carefully cleaning up the mess. For the first time since this nightmare began, we were on the same side. Our enemy wasn't just her greedy family. It was everyone in the world who couldn't stand to see us happy. Leo's betrayal was the rock that finally broke the ice between us. A crack had formed. We started talking. The words were still stiff and cautious, but it was better than the crushing silence. "We have to perform the rite of reversal." Clara looked at me, her eyes filled with a resolve I'd never seen before. "I can't live like this. I have to give you back everything I took." "Do you know what that could cost you?" I asked. The note from Eleanor Shaw was clear. The ritual was a life-or-death gamble. "I know," Claire nodded, "but I owe you this." She went to the wooden box I'd broken open and took out a coil of thick, crimson silk cord. "This is for the union knot. It's been passed down to my family for generations. It holds power, but the rite requires the two of us to be in sync," I said, frowning. "After everything—" "I know," Clara interrupted. "That's why we have to rebuild. We have to have trust." And so, she began to confess everything. She told me about her mother's indoctrination from a young age, how she was taught to identify a prime vessel, and the intoxicating rush of joy and power she felt the first time she siphoned a sliver of good luck from me. She laid herself bare, a penitent sinner revealing the darkest corners of her soul. I listened in silence, feeling the shape of her own torment, her own struggle against a lifetime of programming. Meanwhile, Lorraine didn't give up. She showed up almost daily, screaming on our doorstep that I was holding her daughter hostage, that I was abusing Clara. One day, she brought backup several unfamiliar relatives, all middle-aged women who shared her well-maintained but predatory look. "That's him. That's the man who's poisoning Clara's mind. A grown man, living off our family's good graces, and now he thinks he can defy us. Clara, honey, come with your aunts. Get away from this ungrateful monster." They swarmed the door like a pack of hyenas, trying to force their way in and drag Clara out. I threw my body against the door, using all of my still limited strength to hold it shut. "She's my wife," I grunted, the veins on my forehead bulging. "None of you are taking her anywhere." Just as my strength was about to give out, Clara was there, pressing her weight against the door next to mine. She looked back at me, her eyes shining with a light I had never seen. Not the false glow of stolen power, but a fierce, genuine strength from within. Our eyes met. In that moment, we crossed the chasm of lies and pain that had separated us. We were two people bound by a terrible fate, but we were also each other's only hope. "Get out!" we roared in unison. The screaming outside faltered, then escalated into a hysterical new pitch. But they couldn't get in. They finally retreated, spewing curses. That night, Clara brought out the crimson cord. "Ethan, let's make the union knot." I didn't refuse. We sat on the living room floor and began the complex task of weaving the knot. At first, our movements were clumsy. Our fingers would brush, and we'd both flinch away as if burned. The tension was suffocating, but slowly we found a rhythm. The single red cord moved between our four hands, weaving, looping, tightening. It felt as if our twisted, broken 3-year history was being rethreaded, untangled, and woven into something new and whole. Just before dawn, an intricate, beautiful knot lay finished in our hands. The moment the final loop was pulled tight, it pulsed with a soft, warm red light. "It's done," Clara whispered. A real, genuine smile touched her lips. It was a tired smile, but it was true. And as I looked at the light in her eyes, I felt a corner of the ice around my own heart begin to melt. The rite of reversal had to be performed at midnight on a full moon, in a high, open place that could channel the raw energy of the earth and sky. We chose an abandoned observatory on a mountaintop east of Seattle. It was remote, secluded, and perfect, under the light of a huge, silver moon. We drove up the winding mountain road. The night was black as ink. The observatory's dome was shattered, leaving a gaping hole open to the cosmos. Following the instructions on Eleanor's note, we drew a complex circle on the concrete floor with powdered cinnabar. Clara placed the finished union knot in the very center. "Ethan, are you ready?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I nodded. As the clock struck midnight, we sat cross-legged at opposite ends of the circle. "Once it starts, don't open your eyes, no matter what," Clara warned. "Don't break the connection." She closed her eyes and began to chant in a low, ancient language I didn't recognize but somehow understood. As she spoke, the circle and the knot began to glow, the light growing brighter and brighter, wrapping around us like a cocoon. I felt my consciousness being pulled from my body, drifting into a world of fractured light and shadow. I saw my past play out before me. The slow, agonizing transformation from a vibrant young artist into a hollowed-out failure. I saw my talent, my opportunities, my health, my very vitality flowing out of me in golden streams, pouring directly into Clara. The acute pain of being stripped bare washed over me again, and the rage was nearly overwhelming. Just then, I heard Clara cry out in agony. From my disembodied perspective, I saw the golden streams of energy reverse their flow. They were now being ripped from her body, a violent, torrential flood pouring back into me. The reversal had begun. For her, the process was 1,000 times more painful. It was like tearing something out of her that had become part of her own flesh and blood. Her body convulsed. Her face went deathly white, and a sheen of cold sweat drenched her clothes. Seeing her suffer like that, a pang of pity, of regret, struck my heart. The moment my concentration wavered, the light from the circle dimmed dangerously. "No!" I heard Clara gasp. "They're here!" I ripped my eyes open. Standing at the observatory entrance, wreathed in shadow, were Lorraine and the Shaw women. They looked like demons summoned from the deepest pit of hell, their eyes glowing with a malevolent red light. "You think you can reverse it?" Lorraine shrieked, her voice echoing in the dome. "You think we'll let you spit out what you've already eaten? Never." They couldn't enter the circle, but they stood outside it, their combined will forming a massive vortex of black energy that slammed against our protective barrier. The light of our circle flickered like a candle in a hurricane. "Ethan, focus. Don't let them get to you," Clara shouted, her voice strained. She was using every last bit of her energy to maintain the ritual. I looked at her agonized face, then at the monstrous figures outside. A fire I'd never felt before ignited in my chest. Why? Why should we be their puppets? Why should my life be their fuel? I slammed my eyes shut and focused my will. My endowment, was flowing back into me. I could feel my power, my clarity, my strength returning. I pictured my future, the one that had been stolen, the brilliant art I would create, the success I would achieve. It was mine. No one would ever take it from me again. My will became a blade of iron. The light from our circle erupted, a blinding golden nova that crashed against the encroaching darkness. The entire observatory shook. A trickle of blood seeped from the corner of Clara's mouth. She was at her limit. The two of us, as we were, couldn't stand against the accumulated evil of a whole generation. A hairline crack appeared in our circle of light. "Ethan," Clara's voice was a wisp of smoke. "I'm sorry. I don't think we're going to make it." The crack in the circle widened. The triumphant, ugly laughter of Lorraine and her coven was now crystal clear. "It's over, you two pathetic fools. Clara, you will always be a Shaw. Your destiny belongs to us." Tendrils of black energy slithered through the crack like vipers, striking directly for Clara's heart. If they touched her, she would be lost forever, re-assimilated into the hive mind, her own will extinguished by the backlash of the failed ritual, and I would lose my only chance to ever be whole again. I would not let that happen. I refused. In that final, desperate moment, Clara's eyes flew open. They were lucid, calm, and filled with a devastating clarity. She looked at me, a look that held all her guilt, all her regret, and something else, something I hadn't seen since the day we first met, a fierce, absolute love. "Ethan," she said, her lips forming a smile that was both heartbreaking and beautiful. "Forget what I did to you. Just remember that I love you." And then she did something I never could have imagined. She reached out and grabbed the union knot, the glowing, pulsating heart of the ritual. And with the last of her strength, she tore it in half. "No!" I screamed. The union knot was the anchor, the very foundation of the marital endowment. It was the conduit that tied her to her family's power. By destroying it, she was severing herself from the curse, from her lineage, from everything. It was a sacrifice. She was offering herself to end it. The instant the knot was broken, a blood-curdling shriek ripped through the air. Outside the circle, Lorraine and all the Shaw women were blasted backward as if hit by a shockwave, their connection to Clara violently severed, the dark energy turning back on them in a devastating backlash. Inside the circle, with the siphon and its final gatekeeper gone, my entire stolen endowment, 3 years of luck, health, and talent, came roaring back into me in a single cataclysmic wave. A pillar of pure golden light erupted from me, illuminating the mountaintop like a new dawn. I felt like I was going to explode, my body overflowing with power and light. And Clara, having torn the knot, was like a flower in a flash freeze. All the light, all the vitality, all the stolen radiance vanished from her in an instant. The family's dark gift, the siphoned life force, all of it was gone. She collapsed backward, a puppet with its strings cut. I broke free from the now-dissolving circle and lunged, catching her just before she hit the ground. I pulled her into my arms. Her body was already growing cold, her breath a shallow whisper. Her beautiful face was transforming, the skin wrinkling, the youth draining away until she looked like an old woman of 80. "Clara," I sobbed, my voice breaking. She opened her eyes one last time, her gaze locking with mine. A faint, weak smile touched her lips. "Ethan, am I ugly now?" "No," I choked out, tears streaming down my face and splashing on her ancient one. "You're beautiful. I gave it all. Back to you," she whispered. "Live a good life. For me." Her voice faded to nothing. Her hand went limp, falling from my shoulder. I held her lifeless body and roared my grief into the cold night sky. Beneath the silent moon, a man reborn and a woman withered to dust formed the cruelest of masterpieces. I don't remember how I carried Clara's body down from that mountain. I just remember the sun coming up, a new day for a new me. My life force, my endowment, was not just restored. It felt magnified, more potent than ever before. The price was the weightless woman in my arms. I brought her home and laid her on our bed. She looked peaceful, like a very old woman who had finally found her rest. I sat by her side all night, watching, waiting. The next day, a miracle, or perhaps the curse's final, cruel twist, occurred. Clara's body began to reverse its age. Slowly, she transformed from an 80-year-old woman to 70, then 60. But her vital signs never returned. She became a living doll, a sleeping beauty with a youthful body but no soul. I consulted every expert I could find, read every arcane text I could get my hands on. I finally found the answer in a small, leather-bound journal left by the great aunt, Eleanor Shaw. She who severs the bond sacrifices her soul to the void, her body left an empty vessel in the mortal realm. Only an act of great merit, of profound grace, can call the spirit home. She had traded her soul for my life, and I was now her soul guardian. As for Lorraine and the other Shaw women, the backlash was absolute. They too aged decades overnight, their stolen youth and vitality stripped away. Their siphoned fortunes crumbled just as quickly. Companies went bankrupt, mansions were foreclosed, and their children were mired in legal troubles. Everything they had ever stolen from their husbands was repossessed by the world with interest. It was the ultimate fulfillment of the prophecy. She who siphons will ultimately be consumed by that which she takes. And Leo, once my luck returned, his was destined to run out. An internal audit at our old company uncovered years of embezzlement. He was arrested and sent to prison. My life, on the other hand, blasted into the stratosphere. I founded my own game studio. Inspiration flowed from me like a torrent. Brilliant, groundbreaking ideas materialized at my fingertips. The company became a monumental success. Wealth, fame, prestige, everything that had been taken from me returned 100-fold. I had my pick of investors, partners, and beautiful women who threw themselves at me. I turned them all down. My heart, my life, belonged to one person, the woman lying silent in my home, who had sacrificed everything for me. Every day, I spent hours with her. I bathed her, talked to her, told her about the latest triumphs at the company. She never responded, but I knew she could hear me. Her body eventually settled at the age she was when we first met, 23, as beautiful and captivating as ever. But her eyes never opened. I became a titan of industry, a billionaire. But all my wealth now had a single purpose: to find the great merit and profound grace that could awaken my love. I started a foundation. I built schools in impoverished communities. I funded medical research. I poured my fortune into helping anyone I could. I hoped that my good deeds could somehow ransom her soul back from the void. The world called me a saint, a philanthropic madman. They didn't understand. I was just trying to pay a debt. This forest of success I now owned had been grown on the scorched earth of her sacrifice. I would gladly spend the rest of my life waiting for a single flower to bloom again. Another 3 years passed. My company became a legend, my name synonymous with innovation. The schools I'd funded dotted the country's poorest regions. The medical foundation I'd established had saved countless lives. The media hailed me as a visionary and a humanitarian. They had no idea my motives were entirely selfish. I traveled the world, seeking out mystics, monks, and anyone who claimed to understand the veil between worlds. A Taoist master told me our fate was sealed and I should move on. A Buddhist abbot said her soul was untethered, beyond mortal reach. I thanked them, paid them handsomely, and continued my search. One day, a grizzled old beggar appeared outside my gleaming office tower in downtown Seattle, demanding to see me by name. Security, of course, tried to move him along. But when I saw him on the security monitor, a jolt went through me. I went down myself and personally escorted him up to my penthouse office. "Mr. Reed, I know why you do all this," the old man said, forgoing any pleasantries. He grabbed a pot of priceless, single-estate tea from my desk and drank from the spout like it was water. "Your wife's condition. It's not a lack of merit. You're missing a catalyst." My heart leaped into my throat. "A catalyst? Please, sir, tell me what it is." I bowed deeply. "You still have a union knot, don't you?" he asked. Yes. I had kept the 2 broken halves, treasuring them like a holy relic. "The knot is both the source of the curse and the key to its undoing," the old man said, holding up 3 gnarled fingers. "You need to find 3 things. Using your blood and hers as ink, you must redraw the sigils on the knot. Only then can you call her soul home." "What 3 things?" I asked, my voice trembling with hope. "Water of absolute purity, wood of unyielding heart, and a tear of true emotion." He let out a loud burp. "Where to find them, I can't say. That's your own journey. I was just passing through." With that, he stood up and walked out of my office. I ran after him, but by the time I got to the elevator, he was gone, vanished into the city as if he'd never been there at all. Water of purity, wood of heart, a tear of emotion. It sounded like a fairy tale, but it was the first real hope I'd had in years. I immediately mobilized all of my resources. The answers came back faster than I could have dreamed. The water of absolute purity could be found deep in the Himalayas, locked in the core of a 1,000-year-old glacier, untouched by man or time. The wood of unyielding heart was in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, the core of an ancient ironwood tree, a species known to withstand millennia of lightning strikes, its wood harder than steel. Both were nearly impossible to acquire, requiring immense logistical and financial effort. But for me, impossible was just a matter of price. I immediately dispatched 2 elite expedition teams. But the third item, the tear of true emotion, stumped me. What kind of tear could be so powerful? My own tears of regret and longing? I had shed an ocean of them. I tried, anointing the broken knot with my own tears. Nothing happened. If not my tears, then whose? My mind went to one person, Lorraine. I found Lorraine Shaw living in a dilapidated tenement in a run-down part of the city, surviving by collecting cans and bottles. The expensive clothes and arrogant posture were long gone, eroded by misfortune and time. When she saw me step out of my chauffeured car, flanked by security, her sunken eyes first flashed with fear, then blazed with a familiar, bottomless hatred. "What do you want?" she rasped, her voice like grinding stones. "Did you come here to laugh at me?" "I need a tear from you," I said calmly. "A tear? Huh." She let out a cackle that was more of a death rattle. "My tears dried up long ago. You did this to me. You ruined my life, and you want my tears? I'd sooner drink your blood." She spewed curses at me, at Clara, at the world. I didn't get angry. I simply had my team set up a large, high-definition monitor and connect it to the internet. An image flickered to life. It was a live feed of Clara, sleeping in her state-of-the-art medical bed. I had given her the best care money could buy. She looked beautiful, her skin flawless, her face peaceful, a true sleeping beauty. Lorraine's tirade choked in her throat. She stared at the screen, at the daughter who was both familiar and a stranger, and her entire body began to tremble. What? What did you do to her?" "She sacrificed her soul to save me," I said, holding up the 2 halves of the broken union knot. "And now I need a tear of true emotion to save her." I looked Lorraine directly in the eye. "I've been trying to figure out what true emotion means. I don't think it can be the tear of a lover. Love is too often mixed with desire and possession. And it can't be the tear of an enemy. Hate is only about destruction." I took a step closer. I think it has to be the purest, most primal emotion. The first one, the one that asks for nothing in return. My voice was soft. A mother's love for her newborn child. Lorraine, I know you are a hateful, greedy woman. But I don't believe that when you held your daughter for the first time, when you felt her tiny body in your arms, that there wasn't a single, genuine moment of love in your heart. I pointed at the screen. Look at her. Forget the family curse. Forget the money and the power. Forget your hatred for me. Just for a second, pretend she is that tiny infant just brought into the world from your own body. Think of the first time she smiled at you. Think of the first time she called you mama. Now, I asked, tell me you still hate her. Lorraine's body began to shake violently. She stared at Clara's face on the screen, and her expression began to change. The layers of hate and bitterness began to peel away, revealing something raw and agonizing beneath. She remembered. I could see it in her eyes. The tiny infant suckling on her finger. The little girl with pigtails running into her arms. The proud teenager showing off her first art award. The maternal instinct, buried for decades under a mountain of greed, was clawing its way back to the surface. She had thought she loved the prosperity her daughter brought her. But now, seeing her lost, she finally understood. She just loved her daughter. Clara, my baby. She whimpered, reaching a trembling hand out to touch the screen, only to meet cold, hard glass. Mama was wrong. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. A single, cloudy, scalding tear broke free and rolled down her wrinkled cheek. It was a tear free of hate, of greed, of envy. It was a tear of pure, unadulterated maternal love and regret. I caught it in a small crystal vial. The moment the tears settled in the glass, the broken union knot in my other hand began to glow with a brilliant, warm light. I smiled. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed. A satellite message. The expedition teams had succeeded. The water of purity and the wood of heart had been secured. I looked up, out the grimy window of the tenement. The sun was shining. Clara, wait for me. This time, I'm bringing you home.